It seems like after 2020, every building I walked into, every place I went, somebody was pointing something at my head and taking my temperature. And so we have learned with the coronavirus that taking one's temperature seems to be very important. That seems to be one of the first symptoms of the coronavirus, is that you will have a high temperature. So today we want to talk a little bit about temperatures, why it's important, why we should know what our temperature is, and what's happening in our bodies when our temperature is high or low. So today we have a registered nurse with us, Lynette Holm. She's been a nurse for over 50 years, and we're privileged to have her here with us. So my name is Jim Reynolds. I'm with Ultimate Mission, and Ultimate Mission trains medical health workers all over the world, and we train missionaries to go into places, villages, communities, and to help people with whatever health issues they may be having. So we do taking a lot of temperatures. So this is one of the things that we want to talk about today. So Lynette, please tell me, why is it important to know what your temperature is, and what's important about a temperature?
Okay, if a person has a temperature, we usually mean that it's an elevated temperature.
Yes, that's true. You can have a low temperature or a high temperature.
A normal temperature, and you don't say they have a temperature, but they do. Okay, so if you have a normal temperature, you're feeling good. But once your temperature starts raising, you start feeling, you might have chills, you might have a headache, you're just feeling really sick. And the reason is because you probably have an infection in your body that your whole body is trying to fight. And we call that a systemic infection. And so even like if you have a sore and it's infected, it may be a localized infection. It may just be in your hand or wherever it is. But once you have this infection in your hand and you're starting to run a temperature, that means that this infection has gone to the rest of your body.
Okay.
Your whole body is fighting it.
So when I have a common cold or a flu, is that a systemic?
Well, in the common cold, it probably is affecting your respiratory system. And you could also, the flu, the same thing with COVID, but it seems to affect your whole body. Your muscles are aching, the same with any flu. And so it's really affecting your whole body. And then there's also malaria. Malaria will cause a person to have a fever. And so, and as well as typhoid can also cause a fever. So there's it's an indication that something's going wrong in your body.
Okay, so I should call it a fever, not a temperature then.
Right.
Yeah, you take the temperature, but you have a fever if it's high.
Right.
Okay, let me get my language correct here.
Right.
This is why we have a nurse here, because if you just had me, you'd have the wrong language altogether and the wrong information, but here we go. So what is the best way to take your temperature?
Well, you should have a thermometer. Okay. And you need to, with this thermometer, you need to make sure it's working, that you can cancel it off, and then you will put it under somebody's arm is a very good way of checking a temperature. It'll be a little bit lower that way, though. And another way is putting it under the tongue. And if you have a responsible adult that's not having convulsions or something, putting it under the tongue is probably the best, and probably under the arm for a child. And then you have to wait, because it's going to have a beeping sound when it has reached the amount that it should be. Okay, so
this is a digital thermometer that you're talking about.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
And those are pretty much everywhere today, but you know, I still have one of those old-fashioned mercury thermometers. I still like it. And so I have that just to compare sometimes with my my digital one.
I can never see that thing.
Yeah.
It's like worthless to me, because I can't see I don't know what it is.
You have to be a nurse to be able to
I guess, because I can't see it.
Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, so anyway, that is, that's what it's all about. You're checking a temperature. There's also rectal temperatures in children, but that's a little bit more difficult, and so I really recommend putting it under the arm.
Oh, okay. So.
And you have to hold it on a baby. You
Oh,
can't
yes,
just
I would
put it under
imagine
the
so.
arm. So you have to
They're
hold.
not going to hold it themselves.
No, they
They're going to
aren't,
be
yeah.
squirming and fighting and trying to get it
Right.
away anyway. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So Lynette, what is a good, a bad, or a dangerous temperature?
Okay, so I'm going to say that 98.6 in the Fahrenheit scale is an average one.
Okay.
And so if we're going to do this in the Celsius scale, it's 37.
Okay.
An average, that's an average in the Celsius scale. So anything between 36 and 38 is probably going to be fine.
Okay.
And in the Fahrenheit scale, you can go down a degree or two and up a little bit, maybe up to 100.4, and you're not going to be in a dangerous area. So
Okay.
that's fine.
All right. All right.
Yeah.
And that's for a regular adult or child or both?
Okay, so Jim, if we have a small baby, we have to be a little bit worried because they get sick really fast and then they get well really fast. So
Okay.
that's really nice that they
Yes.
get well fast.
Yes.
But we don't want their temperature to get real high. They can actually have convulsions if they are getting a really high
Ooh,
temperature.
you don't want that, yeah.
No, you don't want that. So anything above 38 centigrade on a newborn baby, 0 to 3 months, you would want to probably get some kind of help.
Okay.
And then on a 3 to 6 month old child, you could do up to 39
Okay.
centigrade.
Before you get really worried.
Yeah, before you get real worried. And that would be about 102 in Fahrenheit scale.
So, but they are running a fever at that point. That's not normal.
Yes, they are running a fever.
Okay.
So at that point, you're going to want to make sure they're getting rest, and you'd want to give them lots of fluids. See if you can get rid of this bug. But if you're not getting rid of that bug and the temperature continues to go up, and with the methods that you're using, you can put cool compresses under their armpits. You can give them cool drinks. Make sure they're not wearing too much clothing. If you can't get it down, they need to be seen by a doctor.
Okay. All right.
I'm just going to say that when it gets to be above 39 and you try some of these cooling measures, sometimes there's medications that maybe you already have at your home that lower temperatures, and you might use that medication, especially maybe a doctor has given it to you and you have it in your home. You can try that too before you go to the doctor.
Okay, check with your doctor, make sure that those medications are okay, and remember to never give aspirin to a baby.
No, you don't. In fact, you don't really want to use aspirin very much at all, unless it's prescribed by the doctor.
Okay, well that's good to know.
It can cause bleeding, internal bleeding in your stomach and other areas, so that's why we don't really want it. But sometimes you want it. A doctor might prescribe it as an anticoagulant. So,
Right, okay.
So there's times, yes.
Right. All right, so tell me, is it always bad when you have a fever?
Well, it's an indication that your body is doing what it should, and it means that your body is fighting this infection, and it's sending white blood cells to wherever the infection is. Sometimes it's in the lung, sometimes it's on a wound, and sometimes it's maybe your stomach. I mean, there's just many places that you can have an intestinal infection. So your body is trying to fight it. And by the temperature getting up, that means the white blood cells are going and they're trying to fight this infection and take away the infection. So sometimes it's actually good to have a little bit of a fever.
So that fever activates your white blood cells.
Yeah.
And then I've also heard that a lot of the viruses don't live well in a hotter environment.
That's true.
Isn't it amazing how we are fearfully and wonderfully made?
Yeah.
I mean, God made us to repair ourselves. And that to me is just amazing. So so having a fever sometimes is helping your body as long as it doesn't get too much.
Yeah, so sometimes you will actually go and see a medical personnel and they'll tell you that they won't prescribe anything. And we used to give antibiotics all the time when people had a slight fever, and now medical personnel are being trained not to give antibiotics so readily. Because what's happening is we're becoming, so that our bodies don't actually fight the infection as well, because we've had so many antibiotics and we're resistant to them.
And we could create bugs that are antibiotic resistant. So we got to be very careful with antibiotics.
Yeah.
And always make sure you take the full dose of antibiotics if you do get them.
That's
so don't
right.
just take half the pills, take the full prescription.
Yes, I learned that the hard way with one of my children, so that's really true, yes.
So how do you treat a high temperature?
Okay, so if somebody has, we're going to call a high temperature hyperthermia. And we're going to use cool compresses. And I mentioned that you can put these under the armpits, you can put them on the chest, on the back, whatever you can to try to cool a person. And the reason we're doing that is, again, we don't want them to start having convulsions. And I wouldn't give them a hot drink. I'd give them a cool drink.
Cool drinks.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also, you don't want to give them foods that are hard to digest. Often, if you do, you'll see it come up again.
Oh, no, that's no good.
Yeah, so you just want to give...
And they're sick, so you're cleaning it up.
Yeah, that's
no,
right.
Yeah, no thanks.
So you want to make sure that the food that you give is easy to digest.
Okay.
And fruits are very easy to digest. Meat takes a long time to digest, so that just kind of gives you some indication of what you might want to give. And then if you have a bathtub and you can put some cool water in the bathtub, that's a good place for a person who has a fever to be in there maybe for 10, 15 minutes to cool off.
Okay, all right. So on the opposite end of that, what if your temperature is too low?
Okay, when it's too low, then we say that you have hypothermia.
So the other one was what?
Hyperthermia.
Because I almost corrected you, but then I realized, okay, you knew you were going.
Yeah.
So
Okay, I'm glad that you let me do it. Okay.
Yes.
So hypothermia means that your temperature is too low. Okay, so we're saying that your temperature could be anywhere between 36 to 38 centigrade. And so that would be probably down to... okay, 37 is normal, so less than 36. Now we're getting down to a low range. And usually by this time, somebody's shivering, and their teeth are chattering, and they're just shivering, they're really cold. Sometimes their speech will be slurred. And when you touch them, they're going to feel cool to the touch. And sometimes their skin is even bluish, and you'll look at their fingernails, and they're bluish. And it's just an indication that something's going wrong, and they need to be warmed up. So what you need to do...
That would describe my wife every time she gets into bed.
I hope you have an extra blanket for her. Yeah. So sometimes this person may say they fell in the river or something and they got really cold and they have wet clothing on. Okay, so for sure you're going to take off the wet clothing and wrap them in warm blankets. That's one of the first things you want to do. And then, you know, I mentioned about the cool compresses. Okay, now we can use warm compresses and put them under the arms. There's a lot of body surface right here under your arm. And so that's why I suggest that. On the chest, cover them up with blankets. And now this would be a good time to give a hot drink, some tea.
Ah, okay. All right.
So that'll help to warm them up. But again, in either of these circumstances, if the person does not respond quickly to what you're doing, then it's time to get some medical help.
Yes. If any doubt at all, get medical help.
Yes.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you, Lynette. And I hope you learned what you wanted to learn about temperature and fevers and low temperature. So I'm getting the language right now. So thank you, Lynette. And thank you for watching this video. If you want to see more videos like this, go ahead and hit the subscribe button that should be under your screen right now. And we will see you again. So thank you very much. God bless your day. Goodbye. We would love for you to be a part of our Ultimate Mission family. Please subscribe to our channel, watch our videos, like and share our videos, donate if you would like. Let's work together to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ to the world.